with Marshall and Rosie or Bergman down back. They've got enough kickers there.
Complete. Job done. They dismantled Essendon. Comprehensive from start to finish from Port Adelaide there.
Alrighty, hello. Welcome to the CREEDCAST. It is Tuesday the 24th of March, later in the evening that we are recording this review of your Port Adelaide Footy Club's big win in round 2 here in 2026. Yes, it is March, it is round 2, and I fucking love footy now because I just go swings and roundabouts with whatever Port Adelaide are doing. That's how my mood is dictated. Yes, it may not be healthy, but that's what I do. But yes, your Port Adelaide Footy Club had an incredible win, 2013, 133 to 10-70. A scoreline that probably doesn't quite actually highlight just how bad Essendon were and how good Port Adelaide were at times, but certainly soured by a couple of injuries, one major one in particular that I'm sure we'll get to. But that probably had played a part in the kind of the last quarter fizzling out a little bit, as well as what was quite a warm afternoon down at Adelaide Oval. Obviously being March, we're still getting those 28-degree days, and it was quite warm. A lot of cramp getting around on the ground. So yes, it was a warm day and one that not the usual footy weather that most players are used to in the dog days of winter. But Jamie, good evening to you. It was a lot more fun this Sunday than it was last Sunday, wasn't it?
It absolutely was, and hello to you. Hello to everyone joining us for another week of football nuffy chat. Thankfully, on the positive end this time around, and we kick off our season at home, that is, with a win, and Josh Carr's first win as well, which was very, very pleasing amidst what was a scorcher of a day. And look, I love footy, and March football is great, but I can recall vividly now a couple of first games at home being scorchers, and poor me, woe is me, and the Eastern Stand just getting bathed in sunlight. And look, for those on YouTube, like, as you can see, I'm not very melanin rich, I guess you could say. So, yeah, it was a bit hot. And yeah, look, as a spectator, it was bad enough, let alone the players, like you mentioned, cramping up. I think Zach Butters might have mentioned after the game that he was cramping up partway through the third quarter. So, fantastic to get the win. And we'll look forward to chatting about this one a lot more than we did last Sunday's game.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, you are correct, and similar for me. Yes, if you are watching on YouTube, you can see two fellas with a bit of ginger in their beards, which kind of just says a lot about our tolerance for extreme sunshine. I mean, you mentioned to me at one point during the game via text, you said, "Oh, look, there's some seats up here if you want to come and join us." And I kind of went, "Thanks, mate, but no thanks," because you did mention we are getting absolutely lashed with sunshine. And I was I wasn't even in my usual seats because those were also bathed in sunshine. I was up taking in the incredible shade that both the score screen and the Moreton Bay Figs on the hill provide. And it was actually kind of like, it was warm. Like, there was kind of a tinge of sweat for me just standing there, but there was a nice breeze. And with the shade, I was actually surviving okay. But I could definitely feel, like, a few times I went for a wander for a beer or a piss, just getting a touch of sunshine through the trees. I was like, I was just like the dude in bench warmers with the sunscreen, just like stay away from me, son. Like, it was warm. So yeah, I mean,
how's the moon treating you? Not a fan. I was just going to say Dracula, but yeah, that's a great shout. Bench warmers.
Just drinking sunscreen.
Kicking off a win review with some movie references. There we go for returning listeners.
Yeah. A bench warmers tangent, like 5 minutes in. But yeah, it was warm, and that did play a part in probably the last quarter fizzling out as far as like any real fireworks go. But we still kicked 5 goals, and we actually still won the last quarter. We won every quarter of this game. The last quarter we won by 1 point. That's still a win. So we'll take that. Now again, we were down once Bergman went down with his ankle, which thankfully looks like it's a 1 to 2 week sprain. It's still obviously unfortunate that he will miss this week, certainly, and his status for the week going forward is up in the air. So he went down in that last quarter, and I think once he went down, that's when I noticed, because I think he went down when we were about 80 points up, and then you kind of saw I don't know if the messaging went out, like, let's just, kind of, charge your battery, so to speak, from the F1 parlance, like just conserve it and coast it to the end, get it through on the fumes, whatever it may be, because obviously with Bergman out, but the big one, and maybe we can start there before we get into the positives, but the Rosie injury was deflating is probably a mild way of putting it. You got a text from me that was probably showed my mindset in the moment. I think I said, fuck, that's my day ruined, which is a little bit hyperbolic, but that's how I felt in the moment watching him go off. I don't know how you felt in the moment, but it looked, just the way he was going off and the limp that he had, which obviously we find out later that he had some real weird feelings with it. It looked, I just felt like that's a bad one. And as we found out, it's not, while it's not ACLs or anything like that, it is still a 3-monther, which is a significant injury and certainly a weird one. I was deflated in the moment. I assume, I don't know if you were right down in the dumps with me, being that we were texting from different points of the ground, but how did you feel seeing our captain, who'd been having an incredible game to that point as well, go off like that?
He had been, yeah. It's amazing to know that he finished with 21 disposals, but 20 of those came in the first half alone.
Yeah.
Just fantastic. Ball use, there's been a bit of chat about that. But, yeah, a typical Connor Rosie game, a typical autumn, March football game for Connor Rosie. But, yeah, I don't know. As you well know, a wave of sickness has just come through me, and that kind of reared its head on Sunday. So I was already feeling pretty shitty, but wanted to drag myself to the game, first home game of the season for a few obvious reasons. So, yeah, I could – yeah, look, I was kind of hopeful. I wasn't fearing the worst. It was, like you said, the limp was a bit suspect. I was kind of just hoping it was a bit of a strain. Wasn't expecting a tendon rupture, and it's just how it happened was just really innocuous with the hyperextension, but also his torso leaning forward, which obviously exacerbated the impact on the tendon. So it's a bit more flattening now that we do have confirmation that he'll be out for quite a long time, and he'll basically have to do kind of a mini preseason once he does get back. To get back to AFL football. So, look, hopefully, yeah, the team galvanises in the absence of our number one, and we push to a position where we are challenging late in the season, because, look, long-term injury is one thing, but thankfully it is early in the season, and in a perfect world, there is still a bit of time for him to make an impact if we were in a position to do so. But, unfortunately, where our list is at, while it's okay at best, another injury or two to some key players, and it would probably be a bit of breaking point areas. We're okay at the moment, but and injuries do tend to come earlier in the season across AFL, and as always, a lot gets made of it. And people like to doomsday about the game. It's all fairly normal for mine. You'll notice that most ACLs generally get done earlier in the season once people are ramping up. Adam Kingsley was on AFL 360 last night with Josh Carr, so a bit of a 2004 throwback there, which was nice. Couple of references, couple of old mates, just kind of some inside jokes as well, which was good. But he kind of mentioned that, like, hamstring strains are something somewhat common once you come out of the off-season, the pre-season, and start to ramp up in your early season games. So it's happening to everyone. We just got to try and cross our fingers and hope that we don't get too many more serious injuries to some key players. We obviously know how big of an impact that can make, as we witnessed last year. So missing Connor is tough. He's an interesting player that you can't really replace because he does offer something a bit different to a lot of players in the AFL. But I think Josh Carr mentioned in either his post-match presser or on AFL 360 that, it won't just be one player that replaces Connor. It'll be a collective effort that needs to replace Connor. And as long as we get our selections right and we come into our next games with the effort that we expect, then hopefully we're okay.
Absolutely, yeah. He's it's partly just because Connor's a player that you and I both have a lot of respect for and love for, but he can be weirdly divisive for certain parts of the AFL world, whether it be the Port fan base or AFL writ large, and it's just like I want to see him have, and he had started the season really well right up to the point, like you said, 20 disposals at halftime. He was by far the leading disposal getter on the ground. Butters got 22 in the second half, so they kind of just had a half each. It's disappointing. But there's nothing much we can do about it now. But just hope that his recovery goes well. There's no weird things that go on in with surgeries and what, because it is surgeries required. We've seen those instances over time where whether it be infections or other complications from surgeries. I know even. And Butters was coming back from his syndesmosis a few years ago. He had a couple of delays with some nerve things with his ankle as well. So, we've got to just hope it's as average, normal recovery as possible for what it is, and that he can kind of find his way back into the, particularly, as you said, if we are competing, find his way back into the side in the back end of the year. But it does open up some intriguing possibilities for how we set up outside of that, and I'm sure we'll kind of talk about that maybe more in the preview next week. We can certainly talk about kind of what we saw after Rosie went off in a bit here as well, particularly in the midfield group. But just by and large, in general, when moving towards the game now, it's a hard. We'll start with this. It's a hard one to review properly without some more data going forward, because we can look at the changes, and certainly probably the main thing I'm impressed with is the intent and pressure, because we made a bad Essendon side look really bad at times with our intent and pressure. Some really, really key movers in that. A lot of guys. I mean, obviously your Butters and all that had great games, but I'm really impressed with. We'll talk about it more as we get to the lines and whatnot. But the Logan Evans, the Jace Burgoynes, the Joe Richards, Gwen McKinley's, a lot of pressure from some guys. The other guys on the list, to throw back to another tangent from last year. I was really, again, it's hard to, we can't take, I think we have to compartmentalize our praise a little bit, but I think we can praise certain aspects. And I think that the response from week one is probably the main thing that I look at for how we responded.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That first quarter is everything that we could have asked for, really. And yeah, like you mentioned, it was the other guys who contributed. Well, it's no surprise why when our mid-tier to bottom-tier players play well, it just lifts the standard overall. Your Zach, and in saying that, our best players, as we noted, as what was well spoken about last week, our best players played an average at best game last week against North Melbourne. So more often than not, they're going to play well, but who's underneath them really lifts the standard overall. And like you mentioned, everyone kind of played their part. It was an all played well type of game. It was very stat paddy type of game at times. And look, it'd be remiss of us not to kind of mention the fact that Essendon it was a bit witch hatty at times, particularly in that first quarter. It was just kind of ridiculous. Obviously, we were sucking at the teat of stats and goals and inside 50s and whatnot, and it was satiating our bloodlust as spectators and Port Adelaide fans at home.
More,
yeah, exactly, baying for blood. But look, you're 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. The opposition are the opposition, but you've still got to go out there and beat them. And like you mentioned, we actually got it out to an 80-point win. Margin. And what happened after that is fairly immaterial to me when you consider all the factors at hand. Heat, lack of rotations, even though they were one rotation down for most of the game as well. Them playing for a bit of heart. Us trying to obviously look forward in our player management. But we came out like a house on fire. And apart from a few innocuous misses at goal, like tick, 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 as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it's probably. I mean, we can. We'll have a look at a few stats here, but when we look at the forwards, it's probably Mitch Georgiades is probably the one that's the most annoyed about how. I mean, I'm sure he's happy with the win, but he could have had a big bag very easily.
Could have had a bat
Some of the
too.
stats out of them. What's that?
He could have had a bat too, if he wanted.
Yeah. There's some incredible stats out of this game. I mean, the first of all is just 165 marks to 58. Is just insanity. Alongside the fact that 25 of those marks happened inside our forward 50, the ease of which we were able to find space, and again, the opposition was a little bit witch hatty, but I did like the way that we were spreading the ball around and kind of our invention and constant. In those moments when we were really trying to force the ascendancy, the quickness of movement from side to side at times was impressive to me. Just in particular, watching the replay at the ground, I was kind of noticing, but like watching the replay just a few times that you had players finding like eager to find the space. I think Rosie was one that kind of just found himself some space, and we switched the play and were able to kind of. I don't remember if it ended up in a goal scoring opportunity or a goal, but it's just like the switches of play and the kind of finding the angles and finding the space and clearly to the mark of 165 marks for the game, and as well as just lots of open handball receives and whatnot as well. We had our moments where sometimes we still had some old habits when handballing into like a couple of hospital handballs, but they were by and large very, very few and far between.
That's right. Yeah, the second and third quarters, it got a bit like we'd done a lot of hard work, played the percentages for most of the first quarter, if not the entire first quarter. And then the second quarter, it got a bit cute at times. Like you mentioned, handballing, trying to bite off some things that weren't there or handballing to players under pressure. So there were still opportunities for improvement, which was good. Much like the West Coast preseason game, though, we were afforded a lot of grace by Essendon. You're talking about switching play and finding quick handball play-ons. Like that, there was just a serious lack of accountability on their end. And, the whole footy world in Victoria is blowing up over them because they are a bit of a hapless mob. I feel like we could step our way through this whole review and kind of be elated at how we performed, but also kind of balance it out with the fact that Essendon were quite hopeless, particularly early. And then after quarter time, I think there were some statistics that kind of matched up a little bit. And there was some instances of us taking some things for granted. Thankfully, though, you want to learn those lessons after a win and not have to, lick your wounds like we did last week. And then, I mean, this upcoming game is made more interesting and some of the perceptions have kind of been kind of thrown in the cauldron again with how North performed out west and who we've got to come up against now. And for Essendon, I guess, with them coming up against North Melbourne. But, I hope we don't rue that loss come the end of the season. I mean, we're already ruining it as it is. But, like I said, you'd rather learn some of these lessons after such a win. But it was just good to see. Some players take another step, and hopefully they can remain at that level now that they've got that in their bag for the season so far.
Yeah. And just the feeling for getting a win under your coach, the monkey off the back, so to speak, for Carr and a few of the new boys, and just kind of getting past that kind of negative energy because the energy was pretty poor for understandable reasons around how the kind of the tabloids wrote about our result last week and whatnot. So just to get that kind of good energy into and there's good content coming out of the club as per usual after a win. 107 disposals, which is just 120 odd more than we had last week against Kangaroos. So obviously, who knew getting your hand on the ball more can help? That it's 70 odd more than an Essendon, and we used it at 76.7%. So, to have so much of the ball and to be basically 3 out of 4 disposals, efficient, goes a long way to helping you win a game. Very solid kick versus handball ratio as well. We were, and just some of the kicks from some of the boys out there. Jack Lukosius, really impressed with him. Obviously, we'll talk about him probably a little bit more in some forward play, but just he had some raking kicks from kind of that kind of just forward of centre area. Really just thumping him in long range ballistic missile attacks into the Essendon defense.
Yeah.
Really didn't have much interceptor, just pulling out some terrible stuff from the news at the moment. But there was not the Essendon defense didn't have too many interceptors in there to deal with some of the kicks that were coming in. But not just him. Likes of Joe Richards. Really liked Willem Drew's game as well. Obviously, again, I'm talking about a few individuals. They'll probably pop up later, but he just some of the ways that some of these guys have opened their games up a little bit, and whether it's just the change of car, the starting of the car, the change of coach is what I was getting to there. Bringing just there's the roles have just differed a little bit, and Willem Drew's first 2 weeks I think have been 2 of his best games since 2024, basically. But we did talk about him a lot last year and where he was going, and I think he's just improved again. Logan Evans looks great, and there's just again there was some really good decision making by foot in this game. Not always. Every AFL game's always going to have kicks that just don't come off and whatnot. And but from again, it's a lot of the guys below. I mean, Butters had some incredible kicks. And the Stars did their star things. But what I'm really impressed with was some of the footwork and skills by those ones below him, and guys that are some players that have maybe had question marks over them, like Lukosius has only played his first game. Those questions will continue until he kind of has a good run at it. But first signs are there for a lot, and I was just really impressed with kind of some of the decision making and a little bit more of the dare. It was a balanced dare, though.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's probably a good time to get into the lines. Chatting about some individuals there, but yeah, I agree that the balance of excuse me, the balance of taking the game on versus just taking it in our stride at times throughout the game, I thought was a bit more mature. When the week before we didn't really know what we wanted to do, it seemed, for most of the game. So it was good to have that clarity. I agree.
Yeah. No, it's really pleasing to see just some of these players in the the mid regions of who you're selecting first on the squad list. Really, just having a few good games to start the season, which is really impressive to see. We can start with the defense. We'll go old school like we did last year, and there's certainly some performances to pick out here. I mean, I'll just say one name, and then you can wax lyrical for however long you want to before you need another sip of your peppermint tea. But Aliir, how good?
AA. What? No, those are his initials, not an expectation. Although, yeah, I mean, without getting hyperbolic, it's just one of the more complete Aliir performances. It does harken back to 2021 when he was AA, as it were. 19 marks is just ridiculous. He did get a lot of rope at stages, he was running to spots where he could be used as an option. It's up to Essendon whether they want to, put some real heat on him or zone off of him, and he did. But more importantly for me was some of those contested marks down back that he just gobbled up. And his relationship with his other key defenders as well. We weren't seeing those blunders like we have seen in the past, although to a lesser extent last year than in 2024. Just imperious Aliir that we love to see. And when he's in that mood, it just does create a bit of doubt. I noticed that, Nat Caddy did play a great game, and we mentioned that that'll probably be the matchup, but I think there was times where maybe it was even Mark Ricciuto in commentary mentioned, Alia's had a great game, but Nate Caddy's kicked a few goals, but I watched the game back, and I'm pretty sure a few of those goals weren't even when he was matched up on Alia. So, take it with take that for what it is. But you can't get much better than that from Alia. Intercept marks, contested marks, just the marks overall to be. Is it a club record? Because I think Chad Corns in SEN. It was Power Nation was cheering on the AFL record, which I think was 23 by Brian Lake, 24. But
I think it was 24. Mate,
I'll take 19 marks in a game like that. I'll take 19 marks in a final or top of the table clash, but I'm taking 19 marks anytime. And he really did just marshal that back line.
Yeah, I still remember when I think Treadray took 16 marks in a game, and relatively early in his career, and just watching that game, and there being just a bit of talk about not talk about records, but just how imperious of a game that was. And then you have Alia taking 3 more than that. I'd have to,
and just what it does for everyone around it. Sorry, just that's why leading well on game day is so important, because you're his teammate, and you're seeing this guy just take the piss a little bit, and that gives you confidence. It takes the load off of players like Asava and Todd, particularly as key backs, and they had good games, I thought, in their own right. But leaders playing well is desperately what we need this year, and you can't get much better of an example.
Yeah, well, you have Todd Marshall taking 11 marks, I believe, as well, and then Asava taking 9. So, look, you got, 39 marks between your 3 tools down back. Like, you shouldn't be losing too many games when that's happening. And then they're using the ball pretty well as well. Like, I think, where's Todd Marshall's? Todd, he took his 11 marks and used it at 80%. Radically is at 91. Alia's 21 disposals were 21 kicks as well, and he used it at 95%. So
take that.
Very good.
Yeah, and look, the commentary team did mention at the end of those third and fourth quarters, it was a bit, let's just kick and catch it. The last 2 minutes of the last quarter was hilarious, because I think we had about 30 disposals and it did not move from the center line, basically. And what I enjoyed more was the discontent from the spectators at the ground, just being okay. And I'm like, whatever.
I found that so funny, and I guess maybe I got a little bit frustrated with it, like when fans started, grumbling, booing, whatever you want to
call it. It's clock management, okay?
I was just like, we're up by 60 points and they're just kicking the ball around. Like I guess maybe the fans at the time were having that more, but at that point I was just like, no, that's fine. And
no more injuries.
And I was just like, I had this moment of being like, where is the maturity? Because I remember playing FIFA back when I was a kid, and it was just like, oh, if you want to get the crowd cheering for you, once you're 3-0 up, pass the ball around a little bit. It was like a thing where if you connect a string of 10 or more passes while you're 3-0 up, and I was just like, we're fucking 6-0 up and we're stringing some passes together and the crowd's booing. What? That's not what FIFA taught me.
Isn't that funny? You see it in the NBA as well, when the game's, secured, you're within the shot clock, you just hold the ball and let the crowd cheer for the win. Yeah, but in AFL, in Aussie rules football, we're never satisfied. We just want more. We want more goals.
Yeah, well, I was more concerned with not having more injuries. So, to your point, I was pretty okay with the a bit of stat padding at the back end there. But for the defense's role in when the game was being played in earnest, which I don't know what you can say about what Essendon's efforts were ever in earnest, but look, Alia to take 19 marks, it means as you said, a team that wasn't providing too much battle. But like he's got to be working harder than his opponents to get to those spots, to mark those balls, and to get there every time. And yeah, 4 of those marks were contested, which there wasn't too many contested marks in the game, but he took four of ours. And as you said, the craft in the contested marking was reminiscent of his very first year here. It was like he just goes up, his hands go up. It looks like he's, should be second best, but somehow when the players come to ground, he's backing away, ready to take the kick, and it's just like, oh, Aaliyah somehow snaffled that. Okay, like, yeah, he was at that kind of just like, if I'm in this area, then it's mine kind of mood that we've seen from him. To be fair, a fair bit over his career, but this was like one of the better examples of it.
I think he's deceptively strong as well, like because of the type of frame that he has. I think his strength is sometimes underestimated, and he does have a very good football IQ. His read of the ball, and therefore his positioning of his body in the contest to take those marks, is some of his greatest qualities as a footballer. And like I said, underestimated at times by fans inside and outside the club. It's something I really admire from him.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. And it was kind of like a real good reminder of those times. Like, I mean, as I said, I don't think he's had too many bad games for us. Certainly he's had the games where he's been affected by injury and his output's diminished. But when knock on wood, but like he started the season quite well and looks to be in really, really good form, and rewarded with obviously he got a contract extension. I think it was announced at some point last week. I don't know if we've mentioned it on the pod yet, but so he's here through the back end of 2027. So some
great words about the club as well from him that were posted today. His love for the football club and
I love that,
not wanting to be anywhere else, kind of thing. Repaying the favour, to paraphrase a little bit.
Yeah.
Warms the cockles.
It's forgotten that he came over with kind of like, yeah, no, he's a talent, but like what kind of talent is he? Was kind of the way you thought about it when he came in from Sydney. Like, but then him just slot right in and becoming more.
Yeah. And look, he's probably not spoken about amongst all the defender chat across the AFL landscape, but I wouldn't be surprised, and I would actually assume that within the playing ranks across the AFL, that he's probably one of the more respected defenders in the competition. And that's a great credit to him for what you're saying, is that Sydney didn't really want to give him up. We brought him over with a set position in mind because, a bit like Asava to an extent. Sydney did kind of move him around the place a little bit, but we kind of gave a vision and gave him a set position, and he flourished. And now, this is Port Adelaide is where he calls home, and it's fantastic. Like I said, I would assume, because taking injury, I think injuries predominantly have played a big part in him not getting a second All-Australian first team position. He's played some great half to three quarters of seasons since 2021. But unfortunately, that portion of the season where he hasn't really played to the standard of an All-Australian member is mostly due to injury.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because as I said, I just don't remember too many times where I've really genuinely been like, Aaliyah is out of form. Usually, if he's having an average game, you go, well, he's on one leg or something like that. That's always the caveat.
Yeah.
It's never just, Aaliyah's out of form. That's never been really something I thought. And look, if I'm forgetting something, then people feel free to write in. But I just genuinely, my feeling about Aaliyah's career at Port Adelaide has been, if he's fit, then he's an absolute general back there, and you have nothing to worry about when he's back there fit and firing. And and like you said, rising tide, kind of, you were alluding to the idea like rising tide lifting all ships. Like, it just allowed Radaglia and Marshall to go to work. I think I'll be interested in the balance of the back line going forward with the kind of the pace of it with the three tools, because I think they're all very skilled and do a lot of good work together when they come up against the best best forward lines in the competition. How that bears out will be an interesting watch, but hopefully as the season goes on, Marshall gets more used to his work, and certainly his work as far as his disposal and everything has been really, really good. And Radically had some good moments as well in this one. Radically had the 7-1 percenters, which is by far the best on the ground, which he's often up there just quietly, just doing some good work, and had a few nice kind of moments where he was able to dispose of the ball and start the rebound 50 forward with a nice kick out to someone on kind of running on the wing or just cut in towards the center. There was a couple of nice Radically disposals. So reasonably.
Yeah, just if I can cut in, this might again be a bit hyperbolic coming off of a 10-goal win. But Radicalier is almost at the point where it's not a... Yeah, of course. So let's lap it up, Port fans. But, some people might disagree with what I'm about to say. But for me personally, and we kind of divulge pretty deep into these things, we watch full reviews of pretty much all, if not every game each year, time permitting, of course. But for Radicalier, particularly after last year's season, even though it was a small portion, it's not a matter of did he play a good game or did he not play a good game. It's did he play a good game, or how good of a game did he play? If you know what I mean. Like it was a bit like my thoughts coming off of that remark. It's just a bit how Mark Bickley came into his best 23 team picking Harry Ram and then basing it off of Asava's performance in 2024. Like Asava played some very good football last year. To the point, I remember there was that Geelong game at Adelaide Oval where the commentary team were basically kind of mocking him a little bit. And then he had them eating out the palm of his hands after his performance, particularly in the first quarter and first half. If you remember that game, I think he was matched up on Patrick Dangerfield for the most part before Danger got injured and before the floodgates opened and our defenders were a sitting duck. But I'm not sure if you agree, but there seems, ever since he's come over, and for good reason to begin with, it's did he play a good game or did he not play a good game? But for me now, it's kind of how good of a game did he play? Because I think he's fairly consistent in his output now, off of the back of what we saw in 2025.
It's where he goes from that baseline now. Yeah. Well, I love Radicalier's game, and I think it's just like it's gotten to the point alongside the baseline comment. Like I'm not as worried. Like you're not watching a game hearing the next like kind of like watching. And I loved Darwin Núñez at Liverpool, but wondering where the next mistake was going to come from or the next miss because you just knew they were coming, even though you knew that there was also some great things coming from him. But now Radicalier has kind of got to that point where I think that's comes with his confidence as well. Radicalier, he feels better about his game. He feels a bit more like he belongs. Like I think there was that first season, there was a little bit you could see there was that that like I'm trying to make them know that I'm here, and now he's just like he's got the trust of the coaches. Obviously, there's a fight for position in the preseason that, and you just mentioned Harry Ram and some people having in the best 23s, but obviously some injury. And Radicalier has still got the trust to start the season at least, and I think he's rewarding that so far. I think he's perfect. Like, I think again, there's more the defensive mix. I'm still waiting to see more data on, but as far as what their output in this one, and certainly even last week against Kangaroos, which we've already reviewed, so we won't talk about too much, but just to refresh on the main point that we made last week, it wasn't helped by the fact the midfield couldn't and there wasn't the intent and pressure from the engine room of the ground, and by and large the defense actually held up pretty well for large parts of the first half last week, apart from when a couple of runs got on, which were a lot down to the midfield rather than the defense. So yeah, their work to start the season has been decent. Some great work from their compatriots down there as well. A particular one I want to really put my spotlight on this week is Logan Evans. I think he's playing
agreed.
His got drafted like that first, obviously 2024 when he got drafted in the mid-season draft. He's energetic. He's getting possessions again. Like that's part of his game was in his first year he gets a fair bit of the ball. He finds his way to the ball. Around the contest, he's tackling, he's putting pressure on, getting the pressure acts. He really, really impressed me on the weekend. I was watching him a lot and just seeing him a lot. He's just there, and I think he's probably played his best game I think he had an okay start to the season against the Kangaroos, of course, but again, that game was rough for a lot. So, but this was probably his best game since his best game since his obvious debut season.
Yeah, he's clearly quite obviously had a good preseason physically. He looks just more well-rounded and stronger, but he's clearly had a good preseason mentally. It was obvious for all to see coming into 2025 that some self-doubt crept in to his mind, and there was a bit of like, now I have to back up my good 2024 season. And that quite clearly got to him, and he couldn't quite handle it. And look, this is a guy who's maybe just 20, if not still 19. So that's going to happen with young people. But the way that he's come into this season is very commendable for such a young player. And yeah, like you mentioned, our fourth for disposals on the day, going at just under 91% disposal efficiency off of 18 kicks. Like you mentioned, there was a couple of matchups he had with Nate Caddy where he actually halved the contests as well. But yeah, I couldn't be more rapt for him to bounce back in the way he has, and he quite clearly deserves his spot. Yeah, he's in the group of our best players for our first two games of AFL football in 2026. That's for sure. That's quite obvious for all to see. And like you mentioned, it was the disposals. It's getting up the ground. It's taking the marks. I mean, he took 11 marks himself. We're just talking about the key position players. It's just a very well-rounded game from Logan.
That makes it 50 right there. That's 50.
Yeah.
165 across those four blokes.
That marking statistic is ridiculous because I think that commentary team was saying Hawthorn were allowed like 154 or something in the 150s.
We beat Hawthorns.
And then we beat that. Yeah, it's just goes to show where Essendon's at mostly. But again, I'm taking it. Fill your boots.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the thing is like we'll keep caveating. Well, we won't try to keep doing it because you dear listeners will hopefully know at this point. We've got to caveat this with the team we played, but you've also got to, if you want to be feeling good about your team, you should put a bad team away, and that's what we've done. So that is part of the impressive aspect of it. Is if we'd struggled against a team that was playing the way Essendon did, then you'd be really worried. But the fact is, we got up.
If you score a ton against Sri Lanka, I'm still celebrating the ton. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to fill your boots, fill your boots.
Yeah, exactly. What was Jason Gillespie's thing? It's like, who else scored a double 100 against Bangladesh?
yeah, exactly.
I'm not sure who else I could particularly spotlight, but I mean, Jace Burgoyne's playing some really, really good footy as well. He kind of seems to be like he's kind of bouncing off a halfback, but he's playing a lot. He's playing a lot up the ground as well.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mixture, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we could spotlight him here, could spotlight him in the next line, but I think really important for him to have a good game. And yeah, a lot was made about his comments last week in the media, and so
overblown.
Clearly, and Josh Carr said that too. Like, no one actually knows what I said, and I'm not allowed to tell you what I said because it's behind closed doors type stuff. But but Jace isn't one of our elder statesmen yet. He's not a veteran. He's in his early 20s himself. So it was really important for him to back up what I thought was a good game against North Melbourne. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry. It was just made me think of. I think Curtis Jones, like the Scouser in the Liverpool team, like often comes out and can be a little bit more open and honest because he's a homegrown player and he kind of
comes from the heart,
homegrown passion. And Jace Burgoyne is father son heritage Port Adelaide player of a great family of Port Adelaide. So there's kind of a little bit of that about how when he came out and gave a little bit of honesty, I was like, that's like fine. Like I it's not like he threw anyone under the bus or anything. He kind of just gave a general idea of how things kind of were, felt. And
And we all had that perception anyway.
Yeah.
It's like, you didn't respect your opponent. And he's like, we didn't respect our opponent. It's like, well, yeah, no shit.
Yeah. And yeah, Josh Carr comes out and says, "Oh yeah, no, that's kind of like on me." And I think Ken Hinkley it was great to have Ken Hinkley on the. Obviously, we were at the game, but watching the replay on the call for Fox, his little insights and anecdotes. I'm not sure he knows the offside rule properly in soccer, but apart from that,
yeah,
he did mention. Yeah, he kind of mentioned that. When the Josh Carr comments and the Jace Burgoyne stuff came up, he kind of just mentioned that's what coaches do. We take the heat a little bit, and Josh did that, but it probably there's modicums of truth here and there, and but
kind of sorry, God, just ringing in my ears again. But he was kind of like saying it as if there was no penalty to offside. Like, you can be offside, but there's actually a penalty for that. But
because he said. That's what happens in soccer is players get offside and they score like that. And I was just like, that's not what happens, Ken. Like, you're doing a lot of good
work. And then it gets reversed because they're offside.
Which I've seen far too many fucking times, or it doesn't on the weekend for Liverpool. I'm depressed about that. But anyway, let's get back to the good stuff. Any other notes on the defense? I mean, it's hard to quantify what
we could throw a blanket. We could run through the list. We've been here before. But look, all played well. Let's move on.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's skip forward to the forward group before we get to kind of the midfield group, because there's a couple of different nuggets I want to get into midfield based on periods of the game. But I mean, let's start. We touched him before, but I think probably the kind of gold star in the forward group, Georgiades gets it for just being ever present, but his goal kicking was a classic Mitch Day, which again Ken Hinkley commented on, makes the hard look easy and the easy look hard. So Mitch gets, he had a great Mitch game apart from the finishing, but Jack Lukosius, obviously first game back, obviously the home opener last year, he played all but 2 seconds off before he got injured and was out. We didn't see him again for 12 weeks. So for him to come out, he takes 10 marks, kicks 3 goals, has some good tackles, has some good pressure moments that go against some of the maybe, popular notions about Jack Lukosius as a player and his care factor. I saw lots of good signs about what I want to see from Jack Lukosius. We saw the best of what we could hope for out of a Jack Lukosius, I think, on Sunday afternoon.
I totally agree, and I think it is worth noting his game for sure, for all the reasons that you touched on there, but also because he came back into the team after not kicking a goal in that trial game against West Adelaide, and there still was a bit of conjecture about if he was ready based on comments made by Josh Carr before the season started. But like you mentioned, he ticked all the boxes he possibly could, and probably in a defensive mindset, ticked a few more than probably what people would have expected. Tackles inside 50. There were some intercept possessions too. But to kick 3 goals, 1 on your return, like you mentioned, first home game that he actually played, first home game for the season where, he didn't go off after, 30 seconds and busted open his kneecap like last year. Really impressive game. I actually had him in my best players until about 50 minutes ago, to be honest. So,
Tough week for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Wins like these are 9 score involvements and, 3 goals, 1 on your return. Some really nice goals, long range. The snap was a bit arrogant. Not arrogant, but just showed how fucking talented that guy is, and kind of makes you sick a little bit. How good some people can be at their nominated skills.
Couldn't be me.
But I guess for me as well, is it kind of further could have been me as I sit here just stroking my belly and wiping the crumbs off. But for me, it's another example of what I've been saying for a while, is opposition and their proficiencies to one side. It was just another example of Jack Lukosius and Mitch Georgiades, particularly in isolation, working together, not being to the detriment of one another when each other are in the same side. Mitch kicked the 2 goals too, but he had 5 or 6 shots on goal. So you take that. Jack Lukosius had 4 shots on goal, and then you get your Jack Whitlocks and the small forwards to come to the party as well. I've really loved it.
Got shots on goal here. Jason Horne-Francis 6, Mitch 5, Joe Berry 4, Lukosius 4, Whitlock 3, Richards 3. Didn't do quick math quick enough there, but that's 25 shots between those your 6 players there in the forward line essentially. So if you're getting 25 shots between your forward 6 in a game, then and if Mitch can convert even at 3-2 instead of 2. Oh, actually, I was going to say his official scoreline is 2-2 because he kicked one out in the fucking full.
He did.
But my point stands.
So,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. But this is a great launching pad now, and it just goes to show, perception of our team by everyone outside the football club and even some inside the football club. It's pretty low. But if, again, our good players, our senior players, our talented players are playing well and that tide, like you said before, you're going to spread defences, and conversion is obviously the most important part of being a forward, which by and large came off, which is another good thing. We're not chatting about a scoreline that had more behinds than goals, kind of thing. I really love Jack's game. Those passes that you mentioned in the kind of overall wrap, like some of them, there was that one in particular. I can't remember who he kicked to. Maybe it was JHF, but it was like a 70-meter kick, or it felt like that anyway, and it was just a bullet. Like, just knew exactly what he wanted to do and just executed from a wing. It was ridiculous. And again, like, people who are like, oh, you should play in defense and whatnot, he's still going to get high, and he's still high up the ground, not cheeched, hopefully. But he's still going to get high up on the ground. Yeah, and he'll get a Buddy Franklin 8 to 10 week hamstring awareness or something, whatever it is. But he's still going to get high up on the wing and be able to kick inside 50 and use his foot skills. Is what I was alluding to.
Yeah. He had it. There was a bomb that ended up in the Joe Berry second goal, the one that he kind of dribbled through after Mitch had taken it. That all came from Jack Lukosius, again, kicking it from the wing. And I'm fascinated by just the power he generates.
Running down the wing.
Salah, Lukosius. We can figure that one out. The power he generates from what looks like I'm not sure, it's not laconic, but it doesn't look like he has to.
Very Kane Farrell-like.
Yes, it is.
In that effort versus output look to it all.
It is a very good comparison because, Kane Farrell kind of does that chip shot thing that still goes 50 without effort. But this is Lukosius, like, just kind of laying the boot on it. It's like, oh yeah, that's just gone 65 with
with ease.
Yeah. I still remember in preseason going down to the trial match and him just launching one from the center square at Alberton, and it made the distance comfortably. It missed, but it was, if he had it on target, it was a goal. He laid that one out from the wing, and Mitch Georgiades was I think actually Zach Merritt actually made a pretty good contest on Georgiades, but it spilled over the back for Berry to score. And I mean, speaking of which, Joe Richard, Joe Berry, and Corey Durden, 2 each. That's perfect. That's the kind of stuff you want to see. And Corey Durden in particular, pressure, tackling, his kind of role as being coming into that role of, if he can get, I mean, he's kicked 4 goals this year, 2 goals each in his first 2 games. He's tackling, he's putting pressure on. He had some great moments. He's kind of filling into that kind of pest small forward tackler, kick a couple of goals role fucking perfectly so far, isn't he?
Yeah. He got stuck into, I think it was Archie Roberts after a bit of a, interesting contest, one of those fly the flag moments. And he got stuck in, filling that Willie void that we kind of hope for to, after 2 rounds of football. But Willie Rioli, we mentioned in our preseason shows, we're going to have to kick more goals than we did last year, and Willie kicked 27, so we need to replace that and then some. So, Corey Durden alone is on track. He's not perhaps going to do that every week, but he's backing up what the coaches have said off of his preseason, which is that they're going to be, they were really happy with it and think or thought that he was going to contribute well in our forward mix and contribute on the scoreboard, which he is. Yeah, what was that? 4 goals, in 2 games. So fantastic. But for me, I think it's worth flying the flag for Joe Berry because I think unfortunately for the young man, he is going to get some criticism or some heavily critiqued reviews, probably unfairly for a young person, a young man. But I think for a young man, a small forward, he played, I'm not going to say a fantastic game, but I think he did everything that you could possibly ask for out of Joe Berry. I think for me watching the replay, it was more that he generally was always trying to create when he had the ball. But when he didn't have the ball, he was always looking to assist, but he was also following the play. And that's how he ended up with his goals, was he didn't give up on the play. He didn't watch it from afar. He followed it. And he crumbed the ball on both occasions like you would want a small forward to do. He still had some things to work on. He got caught in that mindset of kind of handballing it off to players when he probably shouldn't have at stages. But what was it? 19 disposals. His disposal efficiency could obviously do with some improvement. But yeah, we're talking about a guy who's played less than a whole season's worth of games. And unfairly or fairly, he's going to get the comparisons. Yeah, but in isolation, when you are talking about a 19-year-old, he even chews on the mouth guard like Robbie did. So look, there's some signs there that suggest that in time he'll be a player. I really loved his effort.
I thought he had a very good game. To agree with your point, yeah, he was very good. A good mix of skills, like things that he was doing, because he's applying pressure. But he had like you said, 19. He took 6 marks, a couple of goals, a five inside 50s. I feel like he had a pretty
5 ground ball gets too.
Yes, yeah. He was right up there. I think he's doing just fine. Like, and like I said, he's getting the shots on goal thing is like something. If he can be getting the 3 or 4 shots on goal a game at minimum, and finding the opportunities, the conversion will come. I think it's obviously. I was really worried when he missed that first shot. That was a relative give me. I was like, is that going to knock his confidence?
Yeah.
But then he finishes off the 2 classic small forward kind of opportunities. And that first goal of his was really, really good. He like those kind of finishes are what your the set shot conversion can come, and look, if that's always a week, like some players are just more comfortable in general play, and that like if that's where he
seemed to be insidious early though, like he wasn't on an island in terms of set shot goal kicking early.
That's true. Yeah. Mitch had shown the way and the negative, unfortunately, there. So yeah. I absolutely agree. I'm glad you brought that up, because I there is a little bit of that going around. And look, if you're listening and you're one of those people out there that's still a bit like, not sure about Joe Berry. Yeah, no, I'd say get excited. I think he's just some of the signs he showed on the weekend, his quickness of mind and movement and understanding of kind of like how he's reading the game already is far better than it was last year. So he's clearly improved in a lot of areas, and he was a absolute plus point to us going forward. He was finding the ball a decent amount for what his role is, because it's still one of the lower ones on the team sheet as far as like a hierarchy of responsibility on the field, and he's finding the ball. Finding opportunities, and he's just got that. There's like you said, those little intangible qualities that you look for in a player, just how he moves and how he had a quick handball over the back of his head to a player that he thought was there, and the player wasn't quite there, and it goes to ground ball and contest and whatnot. But the fact that he just has those quickness of mind moments to kind of find those openings.
And that was that was earlier in the game. I think it was in one of those middle quarters, if I remember correctly. But then later, I think it was in the fourth quarter, he did it again to DBJ and ended up being a goal assist as well. A bit more open play. Mm-hmm. But he didn't give up. Like, he didn't go away from obviously what is going on inside of his head and what he wants to do with the football in hand and be creative. He didn't shy away from that. He just kept trying, which I thought was a credit. And the biggest challenge for him is backing it up week on week, obviously. And he is a young player, so he's going to have down games and whatnot. But it's bringing that gap between his best and his worst closer together, and hopefully keeping it at a good level while he does evolve into Robbie Gray Mark II or Mark III, if you want to count Zach Butters as Mark II.
Yeah. I guess we need to with Robbie, with Zach. But I mean, it's wise to remember. Robbie obviously started off had some great games early and was an exciting player early, but it was him going down with the ACL and having that recovery time and kind of a rejig of his mindset to football, and he only became an All-Australian in 2014, which is 7 years after his debut. So Joe Berry's
the ACL was what 4 or 5 years? It was 5 years after he debuted. So
yeah.
There was a few years there where Robbie was just your stock standard small forward that could get up the ground as well, and then turned into just one of the absolute best of the competition for a period there, but definitely one of the best players for Port Adelaide Football Club.
Yeah.
Not to put too much undue pressure on Joe Berry, but there's some clear comparisons. It is a player that he said that he kind of modelled his game on, and you can clearly see that that's coming through a little bit when he's at his best.
Yeah, and you can already see, just for me, looking at him and the way he plays and just the way he moves, that he's an AFL player. Like there's an AFL player in the lad, and he's already he already looks a little bit bigger than he did last year, so he's already doing the work on his body, and he just has the skill set and stuff. So as long as we don't, if he doesn't have to see too much, people questioning his draft position and whatnot, just let him develop. And players don't get to choose where they get drafted. Position wise and whatnot, you just got to you just take the player on face value. And what I'm seeing from Joe Berry right now is I'm very, very comfortable with the fact that we picked him alongside the other two blokes that we picked in that draft. Any other points in the forwards before we move to the midfield? Well, obviously, I mean, we can finish off and just say, Jason Horne-Francis as a forward, very good. He'll come up again in midfield, but
yeah, well, I mean, I actually thought you were going to go off of the draft comment and go to Jack Whitlock, because again, we could throw a blanket over everyone and chat about him. But yeah, just the JHF first.
Is Mark
just want to
just on the Whitlock?
Yeah,
I had a bloke in front of me, and shout out to him. Actually, just a side tangent for a quick minute. Fans on the hill, always fun. Had a family of Port fans in front of me. It's like a dad and a son, grown, like all adults, but kind of family thing hanging in front of me. And yeah, this lad, and if he's, I don't know if he would be listening, but if the lad that was on the hill wearing a Guernsey with number 47 on the back, just your excitement whenever Whitlock marked the ball, and he's just like, that's what and he's just like, this kid's going to be amazing. I was just like, I'm right there with you, bud. Every time he marked the ball, he's like, you see how he marks that ball? And he's just like, this kid, he's amazing. But then he missed his kicks, and then the dad's just like, and the guy's like, no, wait until he gets it together. The other thing was, we had a bit of a douchebag Essendon fan near or something, like real lower ebbs of society, kind of just wanted to make trash comment. Like, this is the kind of bloke he was when Rosie was limping off and everyone else was applauding. This guy's going like, oh man, Rosie, when I did my ankle at work, I was back at work the next day, you fucking pussy, and like that kind of shit. And so he was starting to get a few eyes and comments from Port fans around us, and he was he was probably lucky we were all very good Port fans around him, because he was just on his own with it. I think he had a mate with him that the mate was kind of avoiding him at that point, and he started chatting away and saying stuff about Rosie and his injury, and just really poor form. But then he said, "Oh, that's a career ender for him, isn't it?" And was trying to get someone's attention. And one bloke just from his family that was in front of me turned around and said, "No, he's gonna be back and he's gonna be fine." And the guy kind of went, "Oh, okay." And he just went in on the tangent. Went, "Oh, how about horne-francis? You reckon his mum's here?" And just the bloke then the bloke turned around and goes, "Well, you better hope she's not. She'll kick a couple on you too." Just like, and just from everyone around us, and then the guy shut up for the rest of the fucking game.
yeah, great areas from that guy.
Yeah. Anyway, take it back. You reminded me of that little moment that I had to bring up, because just the horne-francis family was going to kick goals on Essendon.
Just one of the unique qualities of Adelaide Oval. Just like you said, a day on the hill always brings up some noteworthy conversation and jibes to one another, all in good fun, of course. But yeah, you mentioned JHF first, like one of the best first quarters that you could possibly ask for from any footballer. And just grab the bull by the horns, coming off of, like we said in our review, coming off of a week where he was getting a lot of undue criticism for his output in round one and its impact on kind of the team and the outcome of the game. Yeah, over the top in my opinion, but just really drove it home how fucking good he is and how much he can take the piss when he's in that mood, you know. So
incredible conversion,
sensational
from set shots. The set shot
just
conversion,
ridiculous. Yeah. Make the hard look easy.
Yeah, I mean, and then his other shots he had later on in the game were often snapshots and whatnot. So he didn't really miss an easy one, which is something that he kind of had a bit of the yips with over the last maybe 18 months, kind of back into 24 and into last year as well. At times he just would miss some easy ones, but yeah, the way he slotted those ones in the first quarter from angles were just incredible finishes, like right from the moment it left the boot. Unlike, Corey Durden wobbling one through and a couple of those ones that were goals in the end and were funny, but JHFs were like no doubters from the moment they left the boat. You could just kind of see the craft in it, which is really, really impressive to see, considering he has had an interrupted preseason, a little bit of lack of confidence in his foot at first in preseason as well in those moments. Like for him to just come out the way he did in that first quarter was just like, yeah, that's the rust is shaken off. Yeah. Did you want to make any notes about Whitlock as well before we get to?
Nah, the marking which the member on the hill commented on was pretty much the most of it. Just the book, as we messaged during the game, like some of them look like they're going to go over him, but he just keeps rising in the air. But just again, to round off the forwards in the JHF chat, like with Connor going down, maybe hopefully this version of JHF can again smooth over that loss that we'll feel with Connor Rosie being out of the side for some time. We obviously don't want to overload horne-francis too much. But a game like that, and the overall midfield mix can be quite adequate without Rosie if JHF can contribute like he did, and maybe we can just bring in a forward. The inclusions this week are probably pretty obvious, but him in that mood is going to make the overall team selection quandary a bit easier without Connor, is my point.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree, because, Connor's going to be missed, but as long as the injury, there's, again, knock on wood, there's no further stress or undue stress to the squad injury crisis and depth charts and whatnot, then there's some intriguing possibilities that go forward from here as to what we do, because there's plenty of talent to kind of utilize through there. That's a good way to segue to the midfield before we get to the segment soon. Yeah, I mean, Horne-Francis, we'll obviously get to the big names, but Horne-Francis did get a bit more middle time almost immediately after Rosie went down, and his power and generation out of midfield there for a couple of, I think, only had a couple of clearances in the end, but just his power in there, and I mean the accountability. I mean, an opposition having to be accountable to Jason. There was one bounce where it was, Horne-Francis, Butters, and I think Drew was there as well for one of the CBA. I was just like, how as a opposition midfield, you're trying to be accountable to those guys and three kind of specific skill sets in the midfield there as well. Drew, again, having a really, really like above Willem Drew baseline game in this one as well. When you've got those three there, it's just like, that's a really, really intriguing mix. Like I am kind of rubbing my hands in glee a little bit about the excitement and then obviously you mentioned obvious inclusions. Ollie Wines is going to be coming back into this group imminently as well, into the CBA kind of mix. And yeah, there's some intriguing possibilities, but yeah, Horne-Francis, we just saw a teaser of it. He had 50% CBAs for the game. And a large portion of those kind of came in the Rosie off the field moments. Very, very exciting to see him look confident from bursting out of midfield congestion again.
Yeah, and that's where we're going to have to get our mix right going forward, or our mixes right at centre CBAs, because before the game, with Ollie's return on the horizon, you're probably going, kind of no matter how Jack Watkins performs, he's probably going to be the one that unfortunately misses out for Ollie, just from a mix point, like midfield mix point of view. But now with Connor going out, it kind of, and the performance of Watkins, which we'll get to in a second, it does make that mix look a bit, interesting. We may, on face value, it might seem a bit same, a bit bulky, a bit, of that slower contested player with the Zach Butters around him and some of those other players. But yeah, so with Ollie likely to come back in, hopefully, like I said, JHF in that mold we just need to make sure we get our mixes right. That's probably a bit more preview chat, obviously, but yeah, it was good to see him explode. But yeah, a bit Scott Pendlebury-like when he's in form, JHF, where he knows the space that he has to work with and then just kind of stops and props, assesses the field, and then makes a relatively good decision most of the time. What did he go at? I think his disposal actually let him down. Yeah. So his disposal let him down in this regard, but we know in time he's one of the better ball users in our team. So it's just something to improve for him. But yeah,
I'm quite surprised to see that number, because the eye test on the day I didn't think he was going to be that low. I thought he'd be a 70 at least, considering the team was at 76.
I think he did try and bite off a few that he was kind of a bit off balance and turned it over. His overall impact kind of negated that disposal efficiency percentage. But yeah, just the time and space that he tends to have, and just the fact that he's very hard to tackle as well, gives him that extra little bit of time to dispose of the ball. But obviously, Zach Butters sits atop a very high mountain. But just to go onto Jack Watkins, because I mentioned it before, really happy for him to take another step up. His game against North Melbourne was, it left a lot to be desired. He wasn't the only one, of course, which we could say until the cows come home. But he did really take that step up, and particularly when Connor went down, he attended a lot more stoppage, but it was the amount of disposals, possessions that he did get. It was tackling pressure. He got his first goal, which was obviously a great tick on the day for him and the club, but a real reward for effort, and clearly showing that he has something to offer at AFL level. And it was him, I think McKinlay, and maybe someone else that the question was posed to Ken, like, are these AFL footballers or are they just depth players? And Ken was kind of diplomatic in his answer, but yeah, we know where they are in the grand scheme of things, but depth players can still play a role. Role players can still affect an overall outcome, and I think Watkins did that on the day.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, I mean, you kind of brought up McKinlay. I thought I was really impressed with McKinlay. Jacob Ware had some good, like, they both, out of those kind of, particularly those players in the lower end of the best 23, so to speak, you want to see the effort and the accountability, and both of them. I mean, Jacob Ware had that incredible, some incredible moments, and McKinlay I thought was really, really impressive as well. Like, just going across, like, outside of the kind of the engine room, so to speak, but out to the wings. Like, I just thought I was really impressed with kind of how they facilitated what our pressure game was, and kind of like keeping the ball upfield, and just and then their link up play when we were transitioning from defense down as well. Yeah, I was really, really impressed with those guys. Just a kind of tangent off of, like, some of those names that aren't well known alongside. But yeah, I mean,
The other guys,
Watkins as well. Like, yeah, they're what they're doing is making it, obviously with some injuries, it may not make it as difficult, but they're making it difficult when it does come to a time when the squad is, they're bursting at the seams, so to speak, with selections. You want these guys making it a tougher decision than it can be at times. Yeah, the obvious. I mean, probably the big thing is Jordan Sweet came into the ruck and had a good game, but again, it's hard to we say. I think what I'll say at this point is, like, he gets to keep his spot going forward. But depending on how Vicentini goes in the twos and where Sweet's at going forward, but it is a game against a 12 gamer in Blackiston who comports himself quite well. I was reasonably impressed with what Blackiston does, but he could tell he's just out-muscled and outworked by a more experienced player, both in age and just knowledge of the game. And yeah, Sweet was kind of earned his stripes, I think, for the going forward for at least the next few weeks.
Yeah, I loved Sweet's game, obviously. He played like he had a bit of a point to prove, and I think he did. Again, the caveat being the opposition that he in particular played against. And yeah, the conversation isn't really done with because, yeah, Viz was up against Tristan Cherry, and he probably would have played a good game himself had he had the chance. I think the Sweet decision is right because, like I mentioned, the
around the ground stuff, was benefited more.
Something that I really like about Jordan Sweet is in general play, even though he is a ruckman and he looks strong, he looks good, he kind of appears to have a midfielder's mindset in the way that he operates, if you know what I mean. Some of the chains of possession that he involves himself with and some of the things that he tries to do, he doesn't try and do too much, I don't think. But yeah, the way he moves and the way he involves himself in chains of possession, it's like he does have a midfielder's mind in a ruckman's body. On top of the fact that he's quite proficient at the ruck craft itself. And, CBAs are one thing and the ruck rule. But like I said, over the year, I think teams are going to figure out tactics to negate the more athletic rucks and stuff like that and mitigate how much that impacts. And then it'll all kind of even itself out over time.
Yeah, a particular point I wanted to bring up about Sweet's game was, like, just his work. Like, he had the 4 clearances, a couple from center and a couple from stoppage, and he had 7 score involvements, 9 contested possessions. It's just like the roundabout, and obviously his disposals, he went at 83% as well. The roundabout part of the game, beyond the 25 hitouts he had as well, was just like what separates him from what Vicentini, because Vicentini had the hitouts and the ruck craft last week pretty well, actually battled pretty well against Cherry, but he just didn't provide enough around the ground. Whereas Sweet, and I'm really glad you kind of made that point about him having a midfield mindset, because that is a great way to kind of explain what I've liked about Sweet a lot. Is he likes to get involved in the link-up play. He's a very proficient player in doing it in a handball chain if he's in the right spot. Obviously, he's not going to gun some speed like a Zach Butters can to get to the spot. But if he's involved there, if he's in the play, he's very proficient in facilitating the play with that midfield mindset rather than just being a bulking ruckman. He looked calm and confident and like he was, he's a competitive beast. I'm sure him and him and Vicentini have a great relationship, being teammates and obviously probably spending a lot of time together on the training track. But there was a little bit of how Sweet's game was just like, I've been biding my time and dealing with this battle in preseason, and he probably knew his moment was going to come at some point, and he kind of seized it as best as he could. Again, the caveat of the relative talent of the opposition notwithstanding, I think Sweet just did what he had to do. And it helped facilitate a very, very dominant result.
Yeah, and that everyone loved that goal. It was a real chest out moment, which typified the mismatch in experience and body shape probably. But yeah,
I really
fucking love that. Want more of that
moment. Like it's just
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
he just said, "Get fucked, get out of my way," and I'm going to bang this on the boot. He almost had another one too. Like almost, I think the commentator said could have been goal of the year. Like, because he juked a couple of defenders and then planted it on the flat side of the boot, on the flat side of the ball rather than on the boot. So it's
probably where his midfield mindset met with his ruckman body, and it's kind of you tried, but you're a ruckman at the end of the day.
Yeah. The footy gods came down to bear there because they went, "You're a ruckman. Ruckman can't do that." And he'd done enough juking there for their tolerance. I think there's a couple of other blokes here in Butters and Drew who, like, I mean, teasing forward a little bit, they'll pop up later for me for sure. Do you want to talk about them now or talk about them when we get to the segments later?
Nah, let's move on and get into the segments.
I love it. Yeah. No, it was a great result. We'll get into the segments in a moment, but a great result to reflect on. And obviously, again, Josh Carr's first win as coach. Before we get to the segments, a quick little call to action. If you're listening to this on Spotify, Apple Pods, etc., make sure you leave a review. A 5-star would be preferred. Otherwise, don't leave a review. But if you're listening regularly, I assume you enjoyed it at least. So leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast network you listen to the podcast on. It really does help. Likes and subscribes on whatever the algorithm, whatever the platform you're using, the algorithms work. Interactions with the platforms is what helps get these things out there. Alongside with that, if you're watching on YouTube, like the videos. I know even if you're subscribed, every video you watch and like, it just helps YouTube. YouTube goes, oh, people must like this. I'm going to help push this out there more. So, because there could be people out there that are searching for Port Adelaide on YouTube that still don't see our stuff there because it's not getting enough likes. So, like the videos, subscribe on YouTube, like and subscribe, and review on Spotify, Apple Pods, etc., etc. And of course, get around the socials, whether it be on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Blue Sky, like and subscribe, or just like and follow on those ones as well. Like the content when you see it. It just helps us. Again, if you're just scrolling through and you see something that we've posted, give it a like. It helps get the algorithms, helps the algorithm. So that's really helpful. And of course, if you want to get in touch with us, any thoughts about the game, any games you've watched, or any other thoughts, you can comment. Shout out to the people that comment on YouTube. I really do enjoy the in-depth comments from some of the regulars on YouTube. You know who you are. There's some really good kind of thoughtful responses to our episodes on YouTube. So we do appreciate you guys out there as well. So shout out to that. So yeah, comment on YouTube. I try to get back to them and do enjoy the discussions there. But you can write to us in email as well, the Creed1870, the Creed1870 @gmail.com. Jamie, let's get into the segments.
Down, Gray doing brilliantly, getting through to Monfries. That's Gray at his best.
Wilson kicks hard and kicks truly.
Robbie! Let him entertain you! Alrighty, the Wilson Gray Award coming up first, of course, as it does every week. Last week's winner was Jamie's nomination for last week, which was Todd Marshall's really, really nice little dissection kick down the corridor that helped open up a goal-scoring opportunity for us against the Kangas. Of course, not a great game overall, but an early sign as to what the Todd Marshall kind of experience can do down back in marking a ball and opening up a forward foray. I get to go first this week, and I saw this live down my end of the ground, and I almost had this like first right away, because this moment tickles every part of my tank that I love about like the Wilson Gray and just things in football, like, and moments in football. And this one was a really unique one. Maybe not unique to this weekend, but there was a moment, I think it was in the first quarter, where Jason Horne-Francis is getting tackled by, I think it was Jackson Pryor, and kind of just lifts him up on his shoulders and shrugs him off his shoulders.
Mead, Pryor, Horne-Francis, come for a ride, fella. Oh, he bucked him off the Bronco. Great tackling. Forces the stoppage. Rodeo style. And the ball from Port.
It was, 13 minutes, almost 13 minutes to go in the first quarter. He just like lifts a guy up and shrugs him off his shoulders and gets the handball out and continues on. It was just a quintessential moment of Jason Horne-Francis kind of just being too strong, too good, and literally having a guy on his shoulders and shrugging him off before. It should have been high, probably, but Jason Horne-Francis said, no, fuck it, I don't even need the free kick. I'm just going to throw him off my shoulders and continue on, carry on and keep calm.
Yeah, nice. I totally spaced on that. I was just enjoying it in the moment, and then when I watched the replay, didn't even note it down. But that's big boy energy. Lift him up. Something you don't see very often, I do say, but yeah, we actually saw it in another game on the same weekend. So
exactly.
There you go.
Yeah.
Great by you. Mine is going to be Jace Burgoyne's rundown tackle late in the first quarter, which turned the ball over inevitably, and then I can't remember whose goal it ended up being, but it did get turned over, taken the other end, and we did kick a goal late in that first quarter. So Jace Burgoyne's tackle for me.
Sonny will say handball was behind his man Giannis as well. He was caught in the tackle. They can explode and go here. Burgoyne, they're out. What have they got?
Well, it starts with this tackle, and last week they had...
Wow.
Love it. I did have, it could be the one I have actually. You know me. I love a Jace Burgoyne tackle because he is really should have.
He's
like
good at that.
Yeah. Like those masterclass things you see advertised on the socials about, like, it's like Martin Scorsese on directing and fucking Aaron Sorkin on screenwriting. Like Jace Burgoyne on tackling is like the other masterclass that should be in that list. He's great. He when he's playing well, he gets a few of those a game, and obviously we talked about he had a great game, and he obviously gets the tackle that gets itself into your Wilson Gray nomination for the week. So of course the Wilson Gray moments that we love on the field that kind of just tingle our bones, that will of course be posted on Instagram tomorrow evening. So we're recording this on Tuesday, the 24th of March. This will be probably released Wednesday morning. So this evening, if you're listening on Wednesday the 25th, go on Instagram if you want to vote for which Wilson Gray moment you like best. Let's get to goal of the week.
Monfries has kicked a goal. Unbelievable. Haven't seen anything like that. It's gone at right angle.
Flashpoint. Stevie Modloff. What a time. He is floating on air now.
Alrighty, goal of the week. Last week's winner, I think it was pretty obvious to probably most who looked at their goals that we scored last week, but Bergman's bomb from the centre square at Marvel last week was the winner. Jamie, you get to go first this week in our goal of the week nomination, so take it away, my friend.
Yeah, well, thankfully this week we have a lot more to choose from, some weird and wonderful ones. But I'm going to go a good old-fashioned drop punt. But more importantly, how deep in the pocket it was from JHF in the first quarter.
Horne-Francis, tighter angle than before. This time he gets it to fade. Oh, he is making that ball talk. Right to left and then left to right. 2 goals.
Well, they say to be able to play on the US PGA Tour, you've got to be able to bend them left to right and right to left. That was golf terms.
Superb.
Obviously already kicking that first one, but second one was just that little bit deeper, had to thread the needle, and he did, and the crowd really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember his celebrations, but I feel like that second one was one where he really gave a good, solid fist bump to as well.
Twas.
Yeah, no, he was starting to feel it at that point. You knew you were just getting a good JHF game. Like, it's probably disappointing he didn't maybe kick 5 in the end, but like he started getting used in different ways. So like he had a great game either way. So, but yeah, no, it was kind of about that point that when we're going to have a good day out here. No, great pick from you. I know you're a aficionado of a solidly executed drop punt from particularly from angles in the pocket where people really have to hone their, you really have to see the craft involved there. So that's a good pick. It was a tough one this week. There's a lot of good ones, but I mean, I'm just going to go. I've got to go with it. I've already kind of mentioned it, but I'm going to go sweet out of the ruck because I love the muscle. I love and it's just like the fact that he kind of knew what he wanted to do probably as it was coming down. Like I think he just recognized the moment. So there's a little bit of obviously the ruck craft involved in kind of just muscling out your opponent, which was essentially just fucking throwing him out of the way. And then obviously you got to grab it and fucking throw it on. And it's just like it all just looked like he just had this planned out meticulously. And I like that confidence. I like a ruckman that can do that. So, I'm going to nominate Sweet's goal.
I like the lack of fanfare as well. Sorry. Just kick the goal. Just, back to the center. Let's do it again, boys, kind of energy.
Go on, boys. Let's go to work. Real Joe Cabot and Reservoir Dogs. I was like, all right, Ramblers, let's get rambling.
Dersmer at times coming into the stoppage.
Sweet, just pushed his man Blackiston out of the way, had a shot at goal, if you don't mind. That is some good ruck work for the big fella, enjoying it himself.
Well, we have a look on the Harvey Norman replay, and even Jordan Sweet will enjoy watching this one back, but it's a way to start of having to fight for his position in this side. Gets in round 2. He's done a
couple of honourable mentions because I want to mention, obviously, Watkins' first goal was actually a really, really nice goal, obviously, out to the boot check side. Really good work from Whitlock to open him up there with a very, very slick handball. It
was almost a Wilson Gray shortlist, just the build-up to that as well. Whitlock kind of shimmying and handballing over the top. It was really nice, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Joe Berry's first goal as well. I mean, both goals were fun, but Joe Berry's first goal was actually really, really good craft and, a great finish. So there was a few options there for goal of the week, but very, very happy with the ones we've got in there. I like them. All righty, let's get in our player of the year votes because I think there's a little bit more discussion with a couple of players in there.
Now it's time for the CREEDCAST player of the year voting.
Alrighty, player of the year voting, and I get to go first on this one. Of course, if you're a new listener, and thank you for listening as always to the new and old listeners. Our player of the year, 1 through 5, obviously 5 being best on ground. We tally the votes, and that comes to our player of the year at the end of the conclusion of the year, whenever that may be. Jamie and I, do not collaborate on our votes. We each do our own 1 through 5. And we don't know who has voted each week, who each has voted for each week. So I'm going, and we take in turns as to who goes first. So I'm going first this week. So with my 1 vote, and I found it really, really difficult this week. Obviously, I'm sure you will, and I will leave honourable mentions to after you have given us your votes. But found it really, really difficult this week, and I hate putting this one at 1 because I actually think there's different weeks that I could have had a performance like this. in the best on ground. But I've got Willem Drew in my one spot. I thought he was incredible. 21 disposals at 90%, 5 tackles, 8 clearances, 4 centre clearances, 4 stoppage. Had the 9 score involvements. Kicked a nice goal from a very, very nice Jason Horne-Francis setup. Yeah, the 26 pressure acts led the team. 8 ground ball gets, which was second best on field behind Joe Richards, who had a very, very good game as well. Just, I love Willem Drew's game, and it's the kind of performance that we've been wanting out of Drew for probably the last, 18 months, really. I love the way he's kind of been utilised so far this year. In my 2 spot, I've got Jace Burgoyne again. There's a few people I wanted to pop into this spot, but I just love what Jace is doing. 22 disposals at 77%, 10 contested, 6 score involvements, 4 inside 50s, 4 tackles, 5 intercepts, 7 ground ball gets. Just looking more and more like the Burgoyne we love again, and a great goal as well. Jason Horne-Francis, I got my 3 spot. We've talked about him a fair bit on the podcast already, but a reiteration of his stat line, the main stats, 26 disposals at 61.5%, probably the one part that let him down. But as I said, the eye test, I didn't really pick up on the fact it was that low. 10 marks, 6 inside 50s, the 3 goals, 4 direct goal assists, over 400 metres gained, a couple of clearances when he got involved in the middle as well, and just started to look, overall, he looked like he built confidence, real confidence back in his body as that game wore on. My 4 votes, so second best on ground, 21 disposals, 21 kicks, 95%. 9 was Aliir. He had the 19. We've already talked about a fair bit about him on this podcast, but reiterate, he had the 19 marks and 4 of them contested, 4 1%ers, 6 score involvements, and 5 intercepts with over 300 metres gained. One of the just a real kind of highlights real game for Aliir, just repeatedly clunking marks and doing his work. And of course, best on ground, it's hard to deny a 36 disposal, 75% efficiency game from Zach Butters, 13 score involvement, 7 clearances with 5 of them out of centre and 2 stoppage, 23 pressure acts, which I think was second best on ground, 6 tackles, 7 marks, 9 inside 50, 771 metres gained. Yeah, when you're putting together a stat line like that, it's really quite impossible to deny that you were best on ground and pretty fucking good at the footy. Jamie, I'll let you take it away with yours.
Some obvious great choices there. In a plethora of people that you could have chosen from, like you mentioned.
Difficult.
Yeah, definitely. I've also got Drew in my number 1 spot. For all the reasons that you mentioned. And yeah, like you said, on some weeks it probably could afford him some more votes than that, but not to be on this time around. But I've actually gone Joe Richards for my 2 votes. And yeah, it was like so many different attributes to his game. 21 disposals, 11 of those contested, 3 intercepts, 10 ground ball gets, like you mentioned, was best on, 81%. 271 metres gained, 5 marks, 2 goals, 1 in his 9 score involvements. He also had 4 clearances, 5 inside 50s, 23 pressure acts, 6 tackles, 4 of those inside 50. And he also had 3 1%ers. So it was just like, for a small high half forward, you can't fill your boots much more than that. And this is kind of what we wanted from him. And this is, I guess, from on a personal front, 2 weeks in a row where I've got him in my votes. So, really great game from Joe. And the coaches, I think, put him in their votes as well. I'm struggling a little bit here, so I'll try and get through the next few. I've gone Aliir at 3 votes. Imperious game and want much more of that for the rest of the year. I actually put JHF at 4 votes. Disposal efficiency is one thing, but the 3 goals too. We're coming into this year, we spoke about needing more scoring and more firepower. Now, we kicked the 3 goals to himself, but those 4 direct goal assists as well puts him to 7 goal involvements for the game. That's just fantastic. It's off the charts almost. So 12 score involvements overall to go on top of that. So 4 votes for me. yeah, the 5 votes for Zach Butters speaks for himself. Real great bounce back game off of the North Melbourne fixture.
Mm-hmm.
But also, yeah, when Connor went down, like you mentioned, having 22 disposals in the second half to really take the baton as the leader, yeah, can't ask for much more. Disposal efficiency was where you would want it. Off of 26 kicks as well, the meters gain, the mark, score involvements, all of that mixed bag that you mentioned before. A clear best on ground for Zach Butters, I thought.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm glad you got Richards in there. He was in my honourable mentions because I actually, it was funny, he wasn't in there to start with, but then he got closer and closer to almost getting in there. But it's because I kind of just went with who I kind of more or less had out of the game when I came home, when I was driving home that night. But Richards, the more and more I looked at the stats and particularly watching the replay, and even on the day, like I remember watching and just thinking he finished his goals really well. And was ever present. And we both loved his work last year as well, and just wanted to see a bit more consistency. And you can already see that might be the building the next phase of his game. Also, honourable mention to Logan Evans. Yeah. But if he's having 20 disposals a game, and if he's kicking a goal or two, it just depends where he's working, because he has games where he does a lot of work upfield and then he gets the goals. It's like, if he just blends both, and whether he has the games where he doesn't always get a goal, but he's still getting the 20 touches and he's doing the work and getting the assists, like whatever it works out. I just think he's got the work rate to be able to do it. And like the work rate and attitude is going to speak for itself in his involvement in the game, which is really, really great. I also had Logan Evans was pushing for my vote. So I thought he just was really, really good. I just wanted to give him an honourable, and obviously Connor Rozee, if he continued at the pace he would have been in there as well. Was pretty close. I think it was actually listed on, if you look at the AFL's best players, he's still listed in the best for Port based on his output in two and a bit quarters. So yeah, and you could have gone down to a few more and at least given honourable mentions. It was a good day out. We had a good day. We had, to quote Draft Day at the end of Draft Day, we had a great day. So
we sure did.
Yeah. Look, plenty of tests and probably sterner tests to come, and maybe one this week. And we just touch on, we'll obviously be doing our preview this week, but it's a reminder that Sunday, very, very early Sunday afternoon at 12 noon, we are playing West Coast at Adelaide Oval on Sunday. So, get around that, get down to Adelaide Oval. Looking like reasonable weather again, might be a bit cooler, which would be nice. I think the last time I checked the forecast was 23, 24 degrees in Adelaide on Sunday, mostly sunny. So I might still want to slather on some sunscreen, but hopefully maybe just the edge of the heat will be a little bit better on Sunday afternoon. So yeah, that's about it. We'll obviously do a preview of that later in the week, so don't need to talk too much more about that one. Anything else from you, Jamie? Are ready to go suck down an entire tube of strepsils and call it a night?
No, yeah, definitely keen to do that. Yeah, maybe have a honey lemon tea before I go to bed. But we'll talk about West Coast obviously later in the week. But inspiring win from them on the weekend. Still copying an injury themselves to someone who's started their season pretty well in Milan Murdoch. Obviously still without Sarcevic. But yeah, exactly. Yeah, a couple of weeks ago, which Adam Papalia was more than happy to keep reminding people. But yeah, love Adam Papalia's commentary. Players like Jack Hutchinson, Tyler Brockman's still out, so they got their woes, but can't take them lightly, which we'll discuss later in the week.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, thank you as always, Jamie, for joining on the podcast and being the talent, and certainly I know you're battling the cold that you are at the moment. So, I appreciate you battling through it and putting together another great episode of the CREEDCAST. And thank you for everyone listening. Thank you. We just appreciate your support. As I said in the call to action earlier, help us out with subscribing and liking whatever you can. But for now, that's it from us tonight. Can the pair.
Can the power. Thanks, guys.